When a person ages out of the system, they're supposed to be prepared for the world. But my sister and I learned that sometimes the world has other plans. Kicked out with my sister just shy of her 18th birthday, we bought a rusted-out blacksmith shop for $8, and what we found inside wasn't just our future. It was our past, our purpose, and a second chance we never knew we were owed. If you've ever felt like the world has forgotten you, or if you've ever had to build a home from nothing, I want you to stick around for this. Hit that subscribe button, because this is a story for anyone who's ever had to fight for their place, and I want you to be part of the community we're building here. The day it all ended and began was a Tuesday. It was raining, a thin, miserable drizzle that made the gray concrete of the city look like it was weeping. Mrs. Gable didn't look at me when she said it. She just kept polishing a water glass that was already clean, her back to me and my sister, Maya. The state says you're 18 now, Leo. You're a legal adult. Your placement is terminated. I was, in fact, 18 for exactly 7 days. I felt about as adult as the sad-looking ficus in the corner of her immaculate living room. What about Maya? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Maya was standing so close to me her shoulder was digging into my arm. She was 17, 351 days shy of being her own legal problem. She's being transferred, Mrs. Gable said, still not turning. They found a new placement for her. A family in Northgate. Northgate was 2 hours away. 2 hours in a different direction. It might as well have been another planet. For the last 10 years, through 3 different foster homes and 1 truly awful group facility, the only constant I'd had was Maya. The only rule we lived by was that we were a package deal. It was the one thing we'd fought for, the one thing we'd always won. Until now. No, Maya said. Her voice was small but hard, like a stone. We stay together. Mrs. Gable finally turned around. She sighed, a long, tired sound that she probably practiced in the mirror. She had a face built for tired sighs and quiet disappointment. It's not up to me. It's not up to you. It's the county's decision. Leo, your things are in the hall. The social worker will be here for Maya in an hour, my things. 2 black garbage bags. One mostly full of clothes, the other with a few books, my high school diploma, and a shoebox with the only picture we had of our parents. Maya didn't have any bags packed. She just stood there, her jaw set, her eyes burning a hole in the polished floor. I knew that look. It was the same look she'd had when a kid at our last school tried to take my lunch money. He'd ended up with a bloody nose and a week of detention. Maya was fierce in a way I never could be. I was the quiet one, the observer. She was the fighter. I looked from her to Mrs. Gable, then at the 2 garbage bags that held my entire life. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud. It was a quiet, cold click, like a lock tumbling into place. For 10 years, we had done what we were told. We had followed the rules, kept our heads down, and waited for the system to decide our lives. But the system had just decided to tear us apart. And I was, for the first time, a legal adult. No, I said. It came out stronger than I expected. Mrs. Gable blinked. Excuse me. She's not going to Northgate, I said, picking up my garbage bags. She's coming with me. Leo, that's ridiculous. You have nowhere to go. You have no job, no money. You can't take care of a minor. It's against the law. They could file charges, then let them, I said, and I held out my hand for my sister. Maya, let's go. She didn't hesitate. She took my hand, and we walked out of that pristine, silent house, leaving Mrs. Gable standing there with her perfectly clean glass. We closed the door behind us, and the sound of the latch catching felt like the period at the end of a very long, very sad sentence. We stood on the wet pavement, the rain soaking into my thin jacket. We had my 2 garbage bags and the $64 in my pocket I'd saved from a summer job mowing lawns. We were free, and we were homeless. We were together, and we were in more trouble than we had ever been in our lives. The first thing we did was walk. We walked until the manicured lawns of Mrs. Gable's neighborhood gave way to cracked sidewalks and storefronts with iron grates. We found a bus station, the air thick with the smell of disinfectant and despair. I bought 2 tickets to the end of the line, a place called Port Gallows. It cost me $12. I picked it because it was the cheapest and the farthest away. It sounded like the edge of the world, and that felt about right. The bus ride was 4 hours of watching the city blur into suburbs, then into flat, empty farmland. Maya fell asleep on my shoulder, her breathing steady. I stayed awake, Watching the rain streak across the dirty window, my mind a blank slate of panic. The $64, now 52, felt like a hole burning in my pocket. Mrs. Gable's words echoed in my head. You have nowhere to go. You can't take care of her. She was right. But the thought of Maya in another stranger's house, 2 hours away, was worse than the thought of starving. At least if we starved, we'd do it together. It was almost dark when the bus wheezed to a stop in what I presumed was Port Gallows. The town was little more than a crossroads with a gas station, a boarded-up diner, and a post office. A single streetlight cast a sickly yellow glow on the wet asphalt. We were the only ones who got off. The bus pulled away with a hydraulic hiss, leaving us in a profound and intimidating silence. The air smelled of salt and wet earth. Now what, genius? Maya asked, pulling the hood of her sweatshirt over her head. Her voice was dry, but she was still holding my hand. I don't know, I admitted. We find somewhere to stay for the night. A motel. We found one. The only one, a low-slung building with a flickering neon sign that just said motel. The man at the desk had a face like a collapsed road map and smelled of stale cigarettes. He wanted $40 for a room with 2 single beds. That left us with $12. I paid him. The room was cold and smelled of mildew. There was a brown stain on the ceiling that looked vaguely like a map of Texas. Maya dropped her non-existent bags and flopped onto one of the beds, the springs groaning in protest. This is a step up from Mrs. Gable's, at least, she said, staring at the ceiling. The stain has personality. I didn't laugh. I sat on the other bed and pulled the shoebox from my bag. I opened it and took out the photograph. It was faded, creased at the corners. Our parents, smiling, squinting in the sun. They looked so young. They'd been gone since I was 8 and Maya was 7. A car accident on a slippery road, just like this one. After them, there was our grandfather for a year. He was a quiet, gruff man with hands as rough as sandpaper. He smelled of metal and coal. He lived in a small house somewhere I couldn't remember, and he never smiled, but I remember feeling safe there. Then he got sick, and the state stepped in. We never saw him again. He died a few months after they took us. All we had left of him was a name on a piece of paper, Arthur Vance. What are you thinking about? Maya asked softly. Grandpa Arthur, I said. I wish we'd known him better. Me too. We were silent for a long time. The only sound was the rain drumming against the window. Then Maya sat up. Leo, what was in that big envelope you got last week? The one you hid from Mrs. Gable. I'd forgotten about it. In the chaos of my birthday and the termination notice, it had slipped my mind. It was a thick, creamy envelope with a lawyer's office as the return address. It felt important, so I tucked it into one of my books. I dug through my bag and found it, slightly damp but intact. I ripped it open. Inside was a letter, several pages of dense, legal text. It was from a firm called Dawson & Sons, attorneys at law, in a town named Blackwood Creek. I'd never heard of it. I scanned the jargon, my eyes catching on my name and Arthur Vance's. It was about his estate. His will. What is it? Maya pressed, coming to sit next to me. It's from a lawyer, I said, my heart starting to beat a little faster. It's about Grandpa's will. He left us something, hope. A dangerous and unfamiliar feeling flickered in my chest. Maybe it was money, a savings account, something that could get us a real apartment, a real start. I read the paragraph aloud. The final remaining asset of the estate of Arthur Vance, herein described as Lot 7, Blackwood Creek, colloquially known as the Old Forge, is hereby bequeathed to his eldest grandchild, Leo Vance, upon his 18th birthday, contingent upon the payment of all outstanding property taxes and settlement fees, totaling the sum of $8. I stopped reading. $8. He left us a forge? Maya said, her brow furrowed. Like, with a blacksmith? And hammers. The Old Forge. I repeated, the words feeling strange in my mouth. A building. An actual, physical place. It wasn't money, but it was something. It was somewhere. And it was ours. Or it could be, for $8. We had 12. Where's Blackwood Creek? Maya asked. I pulled out my phone, the screen cracked but functional, and typed it in. It was a small town, about 50 miles from where we were. A 2-hour walk, maybe, but there was a bus route that passed nearby. The next one came at 6 a.m. We can be there by breakfast, I said, a wild, reckless plan forming in my mind. We pay the $8. We see what this place is. What if it's a pile of rubble? Maya asked, though I could hear the excitement creeping into her voice. Then it's our pile of rubble, I said. The decision felt momentous, crazy, and absolutely necessary. It was the only straw we had, and I was going to grab it with both hands. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the lumpy motel bed, listening to the rain and my sister's breathing, and I thought about a grandfather I barely knew and a blacksmith shop I'd never seen. For the first time in a decade, I felt like we weren't just running away from something. We were running toward it. The next morning, we used 4 of our remaining $12 on 2 bus tickets to the crossroads nearest Blackwood Creek. We spent another 3 on 2 stale granola bars and a bottle of water from the motel vending machine. That left us with $5. Not enough to pay the $8 fee. My heart sank. We were so close. I looked at Maya, who was chewing her granola bar with a grim determination. Her eyes met mine, and I saw the same fear reflected there. We got off the bus at a dusty intersection surrounded by dense forest. A weathered wooden sign pointed down a narrow road. Blackwood Creek, 2 miles. We started walking. The lawyer's office, according to my phone, was on the town's main street. The walk was quiet, the air crisp and clean. It was a world away from the city's smog. After about 30 minutes, the trees thinned, and we saw the town. It was nestled in a small valley, a cluster of old brick and wooden buildings lining a single main street. It looked like a postcard from 100 years ago. Dawson and Sons was in a 2-story brick building with large windows. A small bell chimed as we opened the door. The man who greeted us was old, with kind eyes and a neatly trimmed white beard. He introduced himself as Mr. Dawson. Not a son, but the original. "You must be Leo Vance," he said, his voice warm. He didn't seem surprised to see 2 teenagers with garbage bags. "I've been expecting you. This is your sister, Maya?" I nodded, suddenly feeling shy and out of place. "We got your letter," I said, holding it out. "About our grandfather's will, yes, Arthur's will," he said, ushering us toward 2 worn leather chairs in front of his massive oak desk. A very specific document. He was a very specific man. I knew him for 30 years. Stubborn as a mule, but a good heart. He sat down and put on a pair of reading glasses. The letter explains the basics. The property, Lot 7, is yours. The forge. It's been sitting empty since he passed. The town has kept it on the books, but development companies have been sniffing around. Your grandfather's will, however, stipulated that it could not be sold until you turned 18, at which point you had the option to claim it by settling his final debts, the $8, I said. Mr. Dawson nodded. Property taxes from his last year. He paid everything else off before he died, except that last bill. He left a note with me, explaining it. He said he wanted the price to be low enough that his grandkids could afford it, no matter their situation, but not free. He wanted you to have to choose it, to invest in it. Even if it was just a little, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled $5 bill. My face flushed with shame. We only have 5, I mumbled. We can get the other 3. I can find work, mow a lawn or something. Mr. Dawson looked at the $5 bill in my hand. He didn't look disappointed. He just looked thoughtful. He was silent for a moment. Then he opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small, tarnished brass key. He slid it across the desk toward me. Arthur was my friend, he said softly. He once fixed my son's bicycle for free when the chain snapped, the day before his big race. He wouldn't take a dime. Said to just pay it forward someday. He tapped a piece of paper on his desk. Consider it paid. The settlement fee is $5. Sign here. My hand was shaking as I took the pen. I signed my name on the line he indicated. I pushed the $5 bill across the desk. He took it, folded it neatly, and placed it in an envelope on which he wrote, Vance Estate. Paid in full. It was official. I was a property owner. I was also completely broke. The forge is at the end of town, Mr. Dawson said, handing me the key. Down by the creek. Can't miss it. It's seen better days, son. Arthur let it go the last few years. And it's been 10 years since then. He looked at us, his expression a mixture of pity and respect. You 2 have a place to stay tonight. We do now, I said, holding up the key. He nodded slowly. There's a general store on your way. The owner, Sal, is a good man. Tell him I sent you. He'll set you up with a small tab for essentials. But you'll need to find a way to pay it back. We will, I promised. We thanked him and walked out of his office. the little bell chiming our departure. Back on the street, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. I looked at the brass key in my palm. It felt impossibly heavy. "We own a building," Maya said, breaking the silence. A slow smile spread across her face. "We actually own a building. We own a rusty, falling down building we've never seen." I corrected her, but I was smiling too. "Come on, let's go see our pile of rubble." We walked the length of the main street, which took all of 5 minutes. The town was small, but not dead. We saw a few people, who gave us curious but not unfriendly glances. We passed the general store Mr. Dawson mentioned, and made a mental note to stop there later. Just as he'd said, at the very end of the street, where the road turned to gravel and sloped down toward a rushing creek, we saw it. It wasn't a pile of rubble. It was worse. It was a ghost. The building was larger than I'd imagined, a long, barn-like structure made of dark, weathered wood and corrugated metal. The metal was almost entirely covered in a deep orange rust that bled down the walls in long streaks. The roof, made of the same metal, sagged in the middle like a tired old horse. The windows were opaque with grime, and one was shattered, a dark, gaping hole. A huge, sliding barn door on the front was padlocked, the chain as rusted as the walls. The whole place seemed to be slowly surrendering to the weeds and vines that crept up its sides. It looked abandoned. It looked hopeless. "Oh," was all Maya said. The single word was heavy with disappointment. I felt it too, a cold knot in my stomach. What had we done? This wasn't a home. It was a ruin. I walked up to the big sliding door and looked at the padlock. It was an ancient, heavy thing. The brass key Mr. Dawson gave me was for a smaller, regular door set into the side of the building. I walked around, my feet sinking into the soft, overgrown earth. I found the door, half hidden behind a thick curtain of ivy. The wood was swollen and peeling. The keyhole was clogged with dirt. I spent a few minutes digging it out with a twig. Finally, I slid the key in. It resisted, then turned with a painful, grating screech. I put my shoulder to the door and pushed. It groaned, scraped against the floor, and swung inward into darkness. The air that rolled out was thick and cold. It smelled of dust, rust, and something else. Something elemental. It smelled like a memory. It smelled like coal. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. Maya followed close behind me. The inside was cavernous. The last of the afternoon light struggled through the filthy windows, cutting dusty shafts through the gloom. The floor was packed earth, littered with debris. And in the center of the vast space, like an altar in a forgotten temple, was the forge. It was a massive brick structure, black with soot, its hood rising up into the darkness of the high ceiling. In front of it, bolted to a huge tree stump, was the anvil. It was a beautiful, powerful shape, even under a thick blanket of dust and rust. Tools were everywhere. Hammers of all shapes and sizes, tongs, chisels, punches. Some were hanging on pegs on the walls. Others were scattered on workbenches or lying on the floor where they'd been dropped a decade ago. It looked like the blacksmith had just walked away mid-swing and never come back. It was a mess. It was derelict. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "Wow," Maya breathed, her voice full of awe. The disappointment was gone, replaced by the same wonder I felt. We started to explore, moving slowly through the space. We ran our hands over the rough brick of the forge, the cold, solid steel of the anvil. I picked up a hammer. It was heavy, perfectly balanced. The wooden handle was smooth from years of use. My grandfather's use. His hands had held this. In a corner, we found a small, partitioned-off area. It was a tiny office. There was a simple wooden desk, a chair, and a single cot against the wall. This must have been where he slept sometimes, when he was working late. The desk was covered in a thick layer of dust. A few old ledgers were lying open, their pages yellowed and brittle. I ran my hand over the surface of the desk, and my fingers caught on something. A keyhole. The desk was locked. There was no key. "Maybe the lawyer has it," Maya suggested. "Maybe," I said, but I was impatient. I looked around, then spotted a heavy-looking chisel on a nearby bench. It wasn't exactly a subtle approach, but we didn't have many options. I wedged the tip of the chisel into the seam above the lock. I gave it a few taps with the palm of my hand, then a solid whack with a small hammer. The old wood splintered. With a sharp crack, the lock gave way. We pulled the drawer open. It was mostly empty. A few dried-up pens, some paper clips, a receipt for a ton of coal dated 11 years ago. My heart sank. But underneath a false bottom I almost missed, tucked away in the very back, was a small metal box. It was an old cash box, painted black, with a simple latch. It wasn't locked. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted it out. It was light. I set it on the desk and unhooked the latch. I lifted the lid. Inside, resting on a bed of faded velvet, were two things. The first was a stack of $20 bills, held together with a paper clip. I counted it. $500. It felt like a million. The second was a letter. It was a thick envelope, with my name written on the front in a strong, slightly slanted script. Leo, it said. I picked it up. It was from my grandfather. This was it. This was the reason for the $8 fee, the key, the locked desk. This was the beginning of the real story. Maya and I sat down on the dusty floor, the metal box between us, and I carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside was thick and creamy, just like the lawyer's. I unfolded it and began to read aloud, my voice echoing in the vast, silent forge. Leo, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means a few things. It means I am gone. It means you are 18. And it means you and your sister found your way back here. I am sorry for that. I am sorry that you had to find your way back anywhere, that you didn't have a place to simply be. The world failed you. I failed you. I had to stop and take a breath. My throat was tight. Maya put her hand on my arm. I continued. They told me I was sick. They told me I didn't have long. And they told me they were taking you and Maya. I fought, but I was one old man against the state. I lost. It was the only fight I ever lost that mattered. I knew I couldn't leave you much. The doctors and the lawyers took most of what I had. But I had this place. My father built it, and his father before him. It's not much to look at now, I imagine. But it has good bones. And it is yours. I left you this cash. It's not a lot, but it should be enough to get the lights on and buy some food. Enough to get you started. There's a generator out back that still worked last I checked. The well water is clean. You can survive here. That's the first step. Now about the forge. People will tell you to sell it. A developer has been trying to buy this land for years. They want to tear it all down and put up condos or some such nonsense. They will offer you money. It will be tempting. It will sound like the easy way out. I am not going to tell you what to do. A man has to make his own choices. But this place is more than just a rusty building on a piece of dirt. This is a legacy, not of money, but of work, of making things, of taking what is broken and making it strong again. That's what a blacksmith does. He takes cold, stubborn iron and, with fire and force and patience, he turns it into something useful, something beautiful. Look around you, son. You are surrounded by everything you need to build a life. Not just the tools in this shop, but the strength in your own two hands. The love for your sister. You come from a long line of people who knew how to make something from nothing. It is in your blood. This is your inheritance. Not the deed, not the building. The choice. The chance to build. Whether you stay or go, that choice is yours. That is the only real freedom a man ever has. Be good to your sister. She's tougher than she looks. But she needs you to be the calm one. The steady one. Your grandmother was like that for me. This is not the only letter. If you decide to stay, if you decide to work, you will find the rest. Your grandfather, Arthur Vance. I finished reading and the paper trembled in my hands. I looked at Maya. Her face was streaked with tears, but she was smiling. He knew, she whispered. He knew we'd need this, $500. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a lifeline. It was food. It was power from the generator. It was cleaning supplies. It was a chance. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. I looked around the dark, dusty forge. It didn't look like a ruin anymore. It looked like a promise. It looked like a challenge. That first night in the forge was one of the coldest of my life. We found two old, moth-eaten wool blankets on the cot in the office, and we huddled together on the floor, using my garbage bag of clothes as a pillow. The shattered window let in a constant, chilling draft. Every creak and groan of the old building sounded like a monster in the dark. Sleep was impossible. We just lay there, listening to the creak rushing outside and the sound of our own teeth chattering. You know, Maya said into the darkness, her voice muffled by the blanket. For a pile of rubble, it's a very noisy pile of rubble. I managed a weak chuckle. It has character, it has drafts, she shot back, but there was no real venom in it. Despite the cold, despite the dirt, something felt different. We were in our own space. No one could tell us to be quiet. No one could come in and tell us we were being moved. The fear was still there, a constant, low hum beneath the surface, but it was our fear in our place. In the morning, the first light revealed the true extent of the filth. Everything was covered in a thick, greasy layer of dust and cobwebs. Our first task was clear. We had to make it livable. We walked into town, to the general store. The bell above the door jingled, and a man with a kind, weathered face looked up from behind the counter. "Help you folks?" he asked. "Mr. Dawson sent us," I said. "I'm Leo Vance. This is my sister, Maya." The man's face broke into a warm smile. "Sal, pleased to meet you. Arthur's grandkids. We've been wondering when you'd show up." He looked us over, taking in our dirty clothes and tired faces. "Dawson said to put your essentials on a tab. What do you need?" An hour later, we walked back to the forge with 2 buckets, sponges, a mop, heavy-duty cleaner, a box of trash bags, and, most importantly, a large roll of thick plastic and a staple gun to cover the broken window. We also bought bread, peanut butter, and a block of cheese. It felt like a feast. We spent the entire day cleaning. We scrubbed the floor of the office, washed the single grime-caked window until light could properly shine through, and threw out years of accumulated trash. It was back-breaking work. By the end of the day, our hands were raw and our muscles ached in ways I didn't know were possible. But the small office was transformed. It was still rustic, still bare, but it was clean. We moved the cot in, laid our blankets on it, and it looked almost like a real bedroom. As I was sweeping out the last of the dirt, a piece of mail that must have been slipped under the door caught my eye. It was another thick, creamy envelope, this one from a corporate-looking letterhead. "Westwood Development Group," it said. I opened it. It was a formal, written offer for the property. They were offering us $75,000. I stared at the number. $75,000. It was more money than I had ever imagined. It would solve everything. We could get a real apartment in a new city, buy clothes, food, a car. Maya could finish high school without worrying about where her next meal was coming from. It was the easy way out, just like my grandfather had said. It was safety. It was a ticket out of this cold, broken-down building and this life of constant struggle. I showed the letter to Maya. She read it, her eyes wide. She looked at the number. Then she looked around the small, clean office. She looked at our meager dinner of peanut butter sandwiches. Then she looked at me. "What does his letter say?" she asked quietly. "The part about the choice." I pulled our grandfather's letter from my pocket. My hands were dirty, and I left a smudge on the clean paper. I found the line. "This is your inheritance. Not the deed, not the building. The choice." She was silent for a moment. $75,000 is a lot of money, Leo, I know, I said, my stomach twisting into a knot. I was the adult. I was responsible for her. Was it selfish to even consider staying? To trade a sure thing for a romantic, impossible dream based on a dead man's letter? To condemn her to more hardship because I was captivated by the idea of this place? This is a moment I think a lot of people face, in one way or another. You're standing at a crossroads. One path is paved, well-lit, and leads to a place that is safe and predictable. The other path is dirt, overgrown, and disappears into darkness. But you have a gut feeling that the dark path is the one that leads somewhere truly meaningful. Have you ever been there? Have you ever had to choose between the easy right and the hard right? If this is hitting you, if you know what that choice feels like, let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to hear your story. Because in that moment, I felt so completely alone with that decision. I looked at my sister, my 17-year-old sister who had already been through too much, and I felt the crushing weight of her future on my shoulders. I wanted to give her the easy path. She deserved it. But then I thought about the way her eyes had lit up when she saw the forge, the way she'd called it beautiful. I thought about the feeling of my grandfather's hammer in my hand. I thought about his words. "You come from a long line of people who knew how to make something from nothing." We had made this tiny office clean. We had made it ours. It was the first time we had ever improved a space instead of just occupying it. "What do you think we should do?" I asked her. I needed to know it wasn't just me. Maya took the developer's letter and held it next to our grandfather's letter. She stared at them both. "The $75,000, that's for this land, right?" "For the building, yeah," I said. "They want to tear it down. Grandpa didn't want them to," she said. It wasn't a question. No, he didn't. She folded the developer's letter neatly and set it on the desk. Then she picked up the bread and the peanut butter. "Then I guess we better eat," she said, her voice steady. "We've got a lot of work to do tomorrow." And just like that, the choice was made. It wasn't a dramatic, tear-filled decision. It was quiet. It was certain. We were staying. We were choosing the hard path. We were choosing to build. We ate our sandwiches in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Determination. The next morning, we made a list. It was a very long list. Fix the roof. Fix the window. Clean the main forge area. Get the generator working. Figure out the well pump. Learn what all these tools are for. It was overwhelming. We started with the generator. It was in a small shed behind the forge, a big, greasy diesel engine that looked like it belonged in a museum. I knew a little about engines from a shop class I'd taken, but this was a different beast. We found the manual miraculously preserved in a waterproof box. Following the instructions, we checked the oil, cleaned the fuel lines, and found a can of old diesel. With a prayer, I pulled the cord. Nothing. I pulled again. A cough. A sputter of black smoke. I pulled one more time, with all my strength, and the engine roared to life. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. We ran an extension cord into the forge and plugged in a single bare bulb. It flickered on, casting a warm, steady light over the central workspace. We weren't living in darkness anymore. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. The light revealed the true scale of our next task, cleaning the main forge area. It was 10 years of accumulated dust, rust, leaves, and animal nests. We spent the next week just clearing it out. We filled dozens of trash bags. We swept, we scraped, we shoveled. Our muscles screamed in protest. Every night, we'd collapse onto the cot, too tired to even talk, our bodies aching but our minds clear. During that week, we established a routine. We'd work until dusk, then clean up and eat our simple dinner. We talked more than we had in years. We talked about our parents, about our grandfather. We talked about the future, not as a terrifying unknown, but as something we were actively building with our own hands. We made more trips to Sal's store. He never questioned our purchases, just added them to the tab with a quiet nod. One day, as I was buying a box of nails, he asked, "How's the forge coming along?" "It's slow going," I admitted. "But we're getting there. Heard you got an offer from Westwood," he said, his eyes watching me carefully. News traveled fast in a town this small. "We did," I said. "We're not selling." A slow smile spread across Sal's face. "Good," he said. "Arthur would be proud. He fought those vultures for years." That small word of encouragement was like fuel. It made the hard work feel a little lighter. We were not just doing this for ourselves. We were doing it for him. One afternoon, while Maya was tackling the monumental task of cleaning the grimy windows, I was working on clearing a pile of rotten lumber near the back wall. As I pulled away a large, splintered plank, I saw that the floorboards beneath it were different. They were newer, less weathered, and one of them had a small, carved notch on the edge. My heart started to beat faster. I remembered my grandfather's letter. This is not the only letter. If you decide to stay, if you decide to work, you will find the rest. This was it. This was another secret. I called Maya over. Using the claw of a hammer, I pried at the notched board. It came up with a groan of old nails. Beneath it was a small, dark cavity. And inside that cavity was another metal box. This one was much heavier than the first. It was an old military-style ammo can, painted dark green. It was locked not with a latch, but with a combination padlock. We stared at it. There was no note, no clue. A combination? Maya said, frustrated. How are we supposed to guess that? I thought back to the first letter, to the receipts in the desk. I tried his birthday. Nothing. I tried the year the forge was built, which was carved into the main beam above the door, 1887. Nothing. I sat back on my heels, defeated. What could it be? I looked around the forge, at the tools, at the anvil. My eyes landed on the receipt I'd found in the desk, the one for a ton of coal. It was dated November 12, 2008. The year he died. Maybe it was a date. I tried the month and day, 1-1-1-2. The lock clicked open. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely lift the lid. We peered inside. It was filled to the brim with cash. Stacks and stacks of $100 bills, neatly bundled. I didn't even try to count it. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Tens of thousands. Maybe more. But underneath the money, there was something else. A thick manila folder tied with a string. And on top of it, one more letter. This one was shorter. I picked it up and read it aloud, my voice hoarse. Leo and Maya, it began. If you are reading this, then you chose the hard path. You chose to work. I am proud of you. I knew you had it in you. This money is what I saved over the last 10 years of my life. I lived simply. I sold my truck, my television, everything that wasn't essential. I poured it all into this box. It is for you. It is your safety net. You can take it and walk away now. No one would blame you. You can build a comfortable life for yourselves somewhere else. That is one choice, but there is another. In the folder beneath this letter, you will find my real fight. You will find the truth about Westwood development. You will find deeds, water rights surveys, and historical preservation documents. This forge is not just old, it is a protected landmark. The creek behind it is not just a creek, it provides water to half the farms in this valley. Westwood knows this. Their plan is to dam the creek, divert the water, and force the farmers to sell to them for pennies on the dollar. They have been trying to bury the paperwork and buy this land for years because it is the key to the whole valley. They are not just developers. They are thieves. I spent the last years of my life fighting them. I used the law. I used every trick I knew. The documents in this folder are the proof. It is enough to stop them, I think. But it will be a fight. They are powerful, and they will not go down easy. So you have a choice. Take the money and live your life. You have earned it. Or, take the money and fight. Use it to hire a good lawyer, better than Dawson, no offense to him. Use it to fix this forge not just into a home, but into a fortress, a symbol. Show them that the spirit of this town is not for sale. This is a heavy burden to place on you. It is not fair. But the world is not fair. All you can do is decide what you stand for. Whatever you choose, know that your grandfather loves you. I put the letter down. The silence in the forge was absolute. The pile of money seemed to glow in the dim light. It was a fortune. It was freedom. It was a weapon. Maya and I looked at each other. The $75,000 offer from Westwood had been tempting. This was life-changing. We could disappear. We could be safe and comfortable for the rest of our lives. No more work, no more struggle. But we would be running. We would be letting them win. Letting them destroy our grandfather's legacy and the lives of the farmers in this valley. I thought about Mrs. Gable's sterile house. I thought about the feeling of being powerless, of having our lives decided for us by faceless systems. We had a chance, right here, to fight back. Not just for us, but for a whole community. For him. It's not really a choice, is it? Maya said softly. She wasn't looking at the money. She was looking at the folder with the documents. No, I said, a slow, determined smile spreading across my face. It's not. We had our answer. We weren't just going to stay. We were going to fight. We took the folder and the ammo can full of money straight to Mr. Dawson's office. We laid it all out on his big oak desk. He put on his reading glasses and began to go through the documents in the folder. He was silent for a long time, his brow furrowed in concentration. Maya and I sat in the leather chairs, waiting, the silence stretching on. Finally, he looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief and something else, admiration. "Arthur, you magnificent, stubborn old goat," he whispered. He looked at us. "Do you two have any idea what this is?" "It's proof," I said. "Proof that Westwood is acting illegally. It's more than that," he said, his voice electric with excitement. "This is a silver bullet. Historical landmark designation, federally protected water rights, evidence of fraudulent filings. Leo, this isn't just enough to stop them. It's enough to put them out of business. Maybe even send some of their executives to jail." He leaned back in his chair, a broad grin on his face. "I might be just a small-town lawyer, but I know a few people. People in the state capital who owe me favors. People who hate Westwood as much as your grandfather did." He looked at the ammo can. "And with this, we can hire the best environmental lawyer in the state. We're not just going to fight them. We're going to bury them." Leaving his office that day felt different. We weren't just two kids trying to survive anymore. We were part of something bigger. We had a purpose, a mission. The next few months were a blur of activity. Mr. Dawson was true to his word. He assembled a legal team. There were phone calls, depositions, and trips to the county seat to file injunctions. Westwood Development fought back, of course. We received threatening letters. Sleek black cars would park across the street from the forge for hours at a time, just watching. It was unnerving, But we weren't alone anymore. The town was waking up. Sal started telling people our story at the general store. The farmers who depended on the creek caught wind of what was happening. One day, a man named George, a farmer from down the valley, showed up at the forge. He was a big man with a weathered face and calloused hands. "Heard you're taking on Westwood," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Yes, sir," I said. He nodded, looking around the forge. "Your grandpa was a good man. Stood up for us more than once." He handed me a heavy box. "My wife made you some food. And my boy is pretty handy with a hammer if you need an extra set of hands on this place." He was the first. He wasn't the last. People started showing up. Some brought food. Some brought tools. Some just came to offer a word of encouragement. They saw the forge not as a ruin, but as a symbol of defiance. With the money from the box and the help from our new friends, the work on the forge moved faster than I ever thought possible. George's son, a quiet teenager named Sam, helped me patch the roof. A retired electrician from town helped us wire the whole building properly. Maya, who had discovered a hidden talent for restoration, painstakingly cleaned and oiled every single tool, arranging them neatly on the walls. She stripped the grime from the windows, letting the light pour in. The forge was coming back to life. It wasn't just a shelter anymore. It was becoming a home. And in the middle of all this, I started teaching myself how to be a blacksmith. I read the old books I found on the shelves. I watched videos online. And I practiced. I fired up the great brick forge for the first time, the roar of the flames a primal, terrifying, and exhilarating sound. My first attempts were clumsy, ugly. I wasted a lot of coal and steel. But I was patient. I remembered my grandfather's words. Fire and force and patience. Slowly, I learned. I learned the feel of the hot metal under the hammer. I learned to shape it, to bend it to my will. I started by making simple things. Hooks, nails, hinges for the new door we built. Each piece was a small victory. Each piece connected me to the grandfather I barely knew, to the lineage of makers that was my birthright. One day, Maya came into the forge while I was working. The legal battle was still raging, but we had won a major injunction. Westwood's project was frozen. The mood in the town was hopeful. She was holding a piece of paper. It was a design, a sketch for a sign to hang above the main door. It was a simple, elegant design, a hammer and a pair of tongs, crossed, with the words Blackwood Creek Forge in a strong, clean font. Below it, she had added a smaller line, EST 1887. Re-established 2023-inch. "I thought it was time," she said, smiling. I looked at her drawing, and then I looked around the forge. The space was transformed. It was clean, organized, and filled with light. The tools gleamed on the walls. The air smelled of coal smoke and hot metal, a living smell. Our friends and neighbors were outside, sharing coffee and talking about the next phase of the restoration. We weren't just fixing a building. We were reviving a community. We had taken something broken and we were making it strong again. I took the drawing from her. "It's perfect," I said. "I'll get started on it right away." The fight with Westwood wasn't over, but we knew we would win. The forge wasn't finished, but it was ours. Our future wasn't certain, but for the first time, it felt full of promise. We had started with nothing but 2 garbage bags and a desperate hope. We had been given an inheritance, not of money, but of choice. And we had chosen to build. Looking back, that $8 was the best investment I ever made. It bought us more than a rusty old building. It bought us a history. It bought us a community. It bought us a home, in the truest sense of the word. A home isn't just a place where you sleep. It's a place you build, a place you fight for. It's a place that makes you who you are. The forge taught us that. It took 2 broken kids, and, with fire and force and patience, it turned us into something useful, something strong. This journey taught me that inheritance isn't about what you're given, but what you do with it. It's about picking up the tools you're handed and building something that matters. For us, it was this forge. For you, it might be something completely different. It might be a family, a career, a community project, or just the quiet, radical act of building a life you can be proud of. If our story means anything to you, if it sparked something in you, I hope you'll join our community here. Subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be sharing more of this journey, the good days and the bad. And more importantly, I want you to tell me your story in the comments. What have you built? What battles have you fought? What does home mean to you? Your stories matter.
kids' hard eyes? Okay. Okay, we'll put and see, this is why we steal things from islands. Because now I don't even have to steal this door. I mean, build this door. Because we stole it. Perfect. Oh, right. I was about to be so mad for him being so judgy of our house, but I guess there isn't any furniture, so fine. Pokemon, they just make noise until you calm. Oh, I'm dying. Are you advocating for thievery? You know, maybe a little bit, not gonna lie. Okay, we have a gaming bed. In typical gamer fashion, we can put this table on the ground. That 3 pieces of furniture situation gets me way too often. Me too, Tristan. You'd think I would learn by now, but I just never do. Okay. This computer on the ground. Also, thanks for the follow, Emma. Appreciate it. And thanks for your awesome mind, Ceramid. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm playing Stardew Valley right now and I beat Abigail. Oh my god. Congrats, Espresso. Hope you can stream from prison. Maybe. You just have to tell them that it's Pokopia and I think they'll understand. That's how that works, right? And